What is this? How do we make this work?
How many couples did you blue ball?
Hi, and welcome to the Fourth Wheel podcast with your favorite throuple, where we are here to discuss life, love, and non-traditional relationships in the hopes of broadening the discussion on societal constructs, polyamory, and sexuality.
For our debut episode today, we're going to kick it off with the number one burning question that everyone asks, and that is, how did this happen? How did we become a throuple?
So welcome and thanks for joining. I'm Paige, and I'm joined by my amazing husband, Will, and our incredible and lovely fiance, Cam. And usually we're going to have a guest as our fourth wheel. But today, you, our listeners, will be our fourth wheel to come on our journey and learn a little bit about our story.
So welcome and thank you for joining us. Here on the fourth wheel, we don't endorse anything in particular, other than being your true self and having open and safe conversation. We hope you enjoy the conversation and the journey that's to come. And we are happy that you are our fourth wheel.
So let's dive right in. Will, why don't you start us off with your and Paige's relationship, and how did you two evolve to the point where this could even be a possibility?
Where to start? So Paige and I have been together for almost 10 years, been married for 7.5, and we first dipped our toes into polyamory or the lifestyle after we were basically called hot. And
It took that long to make that happen?
we had to believe it, I think. Paige was getting hit on one night, and then whenever we got back to our room, we were like, that's not something we've never really thought about. What would that be like?
Yeah, a pretty direct proposition. And early in our marriage, I don't know if it would have been something we would have put a lot of thought to, but a couple of years ago, we were approached, and I thought, well, I don't know, why not? We might as well do it. For me personally, although I had not officially identified as bisexual, it was definitely something that had always been there. And then it was kind of convenient to not have to address necessarily marrying a man. But then after getting kind of propositioned officially, we did think, all right, let's mull this over. And then came to the conclusion of why not? Let's try it out, see what it's like.
And y'all weren't worried about jealousy or any of the other complications that can arise from bringing somebody else into your marital bed, so to speak? Literally, I guess.
Yeah, no, of course we were. But like anyone who is thinking about dipping their toes into polyamory or threesomes or whatever it is, you need to establish that good communication, and you need to talk about stuff. So that's when we laid down ground rules, such as like the red flag list of, all right, well, these are deal breakers. And, well, we never want someone in our relationship long-term that's going to be making financial impacts or decisions for us, or, anything that's to change what our 5-10 year plan is. It's never to move past just the fun physical. Oops.
Until I went and broke all of those red flag laws, like several of them.
So many of them.
They had a huge list, okay?
We'll go over it one day.
Yeah.
I think part of it too that helped is acknowledging that jealousy is an okay feeling. There's a reason why humans feel jealous. It is an acceptable feeling, and it's more how you navigate those feelings. What's the root of those feelings? Are they really dominating? Is there something else? And just knowing who you are, if you're sound in your relationship, having that communication in your relationship to begin with is going to dictate everything else.
Yeah.
Honestly, And it's kind of how we viewed it, right? We viewed it as a thing we did together.
Teamwork.
After the first time, we literally high-fived when we got back in the car, and we were like, good job, team. That went way better than expected.
Yeah.
And it did. It was so much better than expected. Yeah.
So you mentioned it wasn't as awkward as you thought it was going to be, Paige. What did you envision it to be? And what was it like that first time?
Movies and TV already depict sexual encounters as awkward to begin with. Whether it's just between two people, multiple people, doesn't really matter. There's always like a hidden agenda to it. And when you already are in a healthy relationship, in a healthy sexual relationship, and you know that's not the case, you kind of think, okay, one variable isn't going to throw that off, or you hope so. But especially for non-traditional relationships, media has, for the most part, depicted it as always being very awkward or something that you kind of have to navigate through and learn and get used to. But when it's something where it is just a raw feeling that you've gone in with boundaries and similar expectations, then you really get to just kind of strip away the awkwardness of it. And as long as there's solid communication between all parties, consenting parties, it becomes more about, okay, what's just the experience that this encounter is going to have? What is that resulting experience going to be like? And having been on the same page already, it was kind of easy to go into that. And then when the physical experience was already good between ourselves, and it was just kind of adding on top of that, it just more revealed layers of different interests that we didn't realize we necessarily had sexually, or even just, things we might have realized. And it, for most people, it might have been a fantasy, but we're actually kind of living it out finally.
Yeah.
And it just became much more like, yeah, it's just people involved in activity that we're all here to do, and it's kind of fun.
So I agree from an alternative perspective of someone coming in as like the unicorn, right? The third person joining a couple. I had obviously done this before I met y'all, and I had similar encounters where it wasn't awkward, and it was because there was so much communication up front. There was always boundaries laid out, clean and simple. Everybody respected each other and respected those boundaries. And so it made for a really comfortable experience overall, where no one feels like they're stepping on anybody's toes. Nobody feels embarrassed or ashamed about what they like or what they don't like, because they've already laid that out for everyone. And it has been, it was just a good experience overall every time that I partook. But y'all were obviously different from the get-go.
We never started this or went into this with the intention of it fixing our relationship. Mm-hmm. It was never something like, okay, there's something missing between us. Let's go try to fix it with another person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important thing, right?
And honestly, that was my experience as well with the couples that I had joined previously. It was very evident from the get-go that they were very solid in their relationship, and they had excellent communication, surplus amounts of respect and admiration and love for each other. None of that was lacking. No one was trying to fix their relationship. And that's why I felt so comfortable, because I didn't feel like I was interfering on anyone's relationship. I just felt like I was adding to a singular experience. And that's, at the time, what I had been looking for. It was, for me, it was a distraction from the emotional toll of dating in today's world, where it can become a bit exhausting when you're investing so much emotionally. And sometimes you want to be able to connect with people on a really valuable level, but not have to have the emotional baggage that comes along with trying to date someone and see if you want to evolve that into a relationship, right? So to be able to join a couple in a one-off, but have it be connected, you know, even if it wasn't a strong emotional bond, we still really got along and had lots in common and really enjoyed each other. But the fact that they were all very solid relationships. And that's what ultimately left me wanting, you know, going on a search for a primary of my own, because I saw all these relationships and how well they worked and how incredible their bond was experiencing these things together as a couple. And it made me kind of want that. So that's what I had been searching for, honestly, when I met Will and Paige. And they just threw me for a loop. They threw a curveball at me for sure.
Well, I think a big thing too is both Will and I, and Cam, you're very much this way, and for a lot of people who do find success in non-traditional relationships where there's a sexual nature involved, is the views of what is sex. And for us, I'm pretty sure it kind of applies that, yes, it is this incredible intimate bond that you get experience. And we as humans strive for companionship and intimacy. But at the end of the day, too, it's the most natural thing you can engage in. It's what all beings on this earth do. And it's nothing to shy away from. It's an activity and something to enjoy as well. And I think that was a very important component, again, reinforcing what Will had said, is it's not something we were doing to fix a relationship. It was an activity to explore together for fun and for enjoyment and for different ways to fill different buckets. Not even just from a standpoint of like, a kink or a specific sexual desire, but it's a way to connect to humans in different ways too.
Yeah, because so after the first experience, we sat down, we communicated, and we talked, and we were like, oh, went a lot better than expected. So I guess, like, how does that happen again? Like, do we just go out into bars and like do the thing you see in the movies where you're like the creepy couple who might be attractive, but then they're like, oh, they're looking at us weird all night. Like, I've been there, right? I've been on the other side of that. It's not that great. So we were like, all right, how do we find another female or another unicorn? To see if that was just a fluke or like if we are actually good at this. It's our egos, really. So that's when we stumbled upon Field via Google and Reddit and other things like that. And so that's where we implemented a lot of these things that you kind of have already touched base on, and that is finding people who were secure enough in themselves that we trusted them and could communicate with them enough to bring them into our marriage, into our bedroom, and do it in a safe way. Because that's like the most interesting part about all this is just like the safety aspect. Making, especially whenever you're a single female and you're going to meet a couple, like I can imagine it doesn't feel like the safest thing in the world, you know? So we always wanted to make sure we weren't that creepy couple. And so we made sure we had the list and everything and communication. And that communication led to meeting a lot of really great people and making friends and ultimately finding a love of our life.
And Cam, you probably experienced this too, in kind of dipping your toes in, learning that this is happening already. People are already doing this all the time. The people you least suspect are the ones who are exploring their sexual encounters the most, it's just not norm to talk about it.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. When you guys first started those experiences for yourself, do you feel that it brought you closer together as a couple, sharing that together, sharing that activity for fun together? What was that like?
Oh, absolutely. Especially because we got really lucky, and apparently I've always joked about how I don't have natural talents. And then it was like, hey, what if this is the natural talent? So yeah, there naturally came some accolades that really helped our confidence in different ways. Not that it necessarily needed it in that aspect, but that definitely helped, and definitely kind of provided some motivation to continue and explore more. And then, I mean, part of it too is just the fact that learning, hey, we aren't just allies, we're actually part of a broader community that is often shunned upon, or misunderstood. It found a place of belonging as well.
You know, when I stumbled upon my first couple, it was really funny because I was truly just rage swiping on Bumble. And I had gone through, I think, all of the available single men on Bumble and rejected them all. And sure enough, a couple popped up and I was like, what is this? I didn't even know this was a thing that you could do on Bumble, where it was a couple profile and they talked about looking for a third. And it just sparked my curiosity enough. I'm very analytical, and so I had to know more. I wanted to know how it worked, what the rules were, how it set them up for success, you know, why they had decided to do this as a couple. And so I swiped right. And sure enough, they were great. They answered all my questions. And, you know, I made it very clear up front. I was like, look, I don't know that this is like for me or that I'm interested, but I am really curious how this works for you guys. Because I was a little disillusioned on traditional relationships. I had just gotten out of an 11-year marriage where things did not end well, and it wasn't particularly my choice. And I just didn't know that I believed in that American dream of what relationships should be, what we grow up idealizing those relationships to be. And so I was like, if this is working for some people, like, I'm very curious as to how this actually pans out. What do you get out of it, you know? And as soon as they started answering questions and I swiped right, you know, the algorithm was on top of it. It was like, oh, here's a few more couples to look at. And sure enough, all those other couples had different arrangements, you know, all these different setups for their rules and dynamics. And I found it so fascinating. I had to learn more. And so I kept swiping right. And everybody kept answering my questions. They were very open and accepting, and, you know, just willing to participate in kind of my research, if you will. And then I did find a couple that I ended up clicking with and, you know, had my first actual experience with. And it was fantastic. I mean, it just completely changed my whole approach.
Wait. How many dates did you go on before you actually slept with one of these couples? How many couples did you blue ball? Because could you imagine? I would be so disappointed. Oh man, you matching and then be like, I just got questions.
So there were several couples where I just asked a bunch of questions. We never met, but we chatted a little bit, and they answered a lot of my questions, and it was fantastic. And
if you're listening, reach out to us. We want to do an interview.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that first couple, the girl was a fan for sure.
Who wouldn't be? Okay. Sorry.
But it was kind of funny how that first couple ended up working out, that I ended up actually doing the deed with, was because I had an actual, like a regular, I don't even know how to say that, a traditional date with a guy planned for that night. And it was on an adult weekend where I didn't have my kiddo. And they canceled at the last minute. And so I was at work in the office, and so already like dressed for a date. And
They
ready to
being
go
the
out.
guy,
Yeah,
not
the original
couple.
guy. Yeah, correct, not the couple. But I knew that this other couple that I had recently matched with and had just started having a conversation with, I knew that they lived in the area, like less than 5 minutes from my office. And so when that guy canceled, I just sort of hit him up and I was like, hey, if y'all are free tonight, I'm going to be going to happy hour at this place. We could meet and see what the vibe is and go from there. And they're like, absolutely, we'll be there. And they met me out and we just talked. It was very easy. It was so easy. It was honestly like we were just instant friends right off the bat. And, there was chemistry, but not like the instant chemistry that I felt with y'all. It was a very different kind of chemistry. It's like chemistry in that, yeah, these people are cool. I like them. We can have a great time. And I'm physically attracted to both of them enough to want to like see where this goes. And they lived like 5 minutes away again. So after we had a couple of drinks and had some great conversation, we went back to their place. We got in their pool and things proceeded from there. They did have a sex swing above their bed. That was a whole thing. We did not entertain that at the time. That was going to be a little too much for my first time.
You were like, I gotta find out if this is load bearing first.
Right? Yeah, I needed a little more trust there. It was awkward, and I did do some awkward giggling throughout kind of the whole experience, but they were just very patient and willing. But yeah, I do remember leaving the house after that first night, and the woman walking me to the door, and as she's saying goodbye, she's like, all right, goodbye. I love you. I was like, oh okay.
That's
a great
better
time.
than the guy though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's true.
That would have been, that's a cute, funny story. The guy, you're like, ooh.
And that's when I stopped these experiences completely and never looked back.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
That particular dynamic was, he was kind of along for the ride. She was genuinely looking for a girlfriend, but obviously had him as a boyfriend. But she wanted her own girlfriend that they could play with together, and then she could also date individually.
So one thing that we discovered in all of our experiences for a couple of years, in the women that we had met, because we are primarily seeking out women specifically to have an experience with, mostly because
Dudes are gross.
these can be a little gross.
Sorry, guys.
But part of it too is like, okay, I've traditionally been in monogamous relationships with men, so part of it was a exploratory thing, and yeah,
Discovery.
it's single men are already a difficult thing to find a good one who's going to respect certain dynamics. That's been, I don't know, that's a dilemma for a lot of people.
Boundaries for sure, yeah.
For most of the women we did meet, though, it was very interesting how much society norms have still dictated what they're looking for, even when they're engaged in exploring activities. For the most part, across the board, all of them said, well, they want to find their primary. They want to find their will. And so a lot was very, very, very comfortable with the fact that, hey, we were married. By no means were we a threat to impeding on their goals in their life. It was more just something that they can engage in and have fun with. But it was a very safe thing to do. It was safe dick, basically. But it was very fascinating, that rhetoric over and over again, even though a lot of these women that we're meeting and hanging out with on dates and afterwards, even though obviously their interests are very much more blurred than just heteronormative interests, still it came back to they were still actively seeking a primary, typically a male primary, a hetero male primary, usually more often than not even, because those society norms are so strong. And so those are boundaries that were set, by other people a lot. And that was a fascinating thing that we learned. Again, a lot of things were just research and exploring, what are other people looking for as well. And it was very fascinating to see that was still a big thing that most people came back to, and a very similar rhetoric of they had fun, they enjoyed their experience, but ultimately when they went home, they were wanting that primary person, usually a primary male, to be able to go home with.
I mean, that was me. It was me when y'all found me, and I was still dating other men, because despite having these experiences with couples and having a sexual attraction to women pretty much my whole life, I had always been hetero-romantic, in that sense of just probably that kind of those societal norms pushing me towards that more than anything. But I didn't see myself falling in love with a woman, even though I found women incredibly attractive. I'd always seen myself in relationships with men. And so I was always in relationships with men and just lusted after women because, I mean, why not? They're beautiful, right? But yeah, so in that first encounter, it maybe threw me off a little bit because she was genuinely looking for a relationship with another woman. And at the time, I kind of classified myself as a bad bisexual because, I wasn't fully comfortable with it. And that in itself was a whole journey. And then when I met you guys and I met Paige, that changed. I had never had the experience of falling in love with a woman. I didn't think that was actually possible for me. So it really confirmed actually my thoughts on my own sexuality, where I was like, I know that I'm bi, but do I have to also be romantically interested in women in order to be bi? Or is it okay if it's just a physical thing? And then obviously you came and taught me that I do have that emotional component and do very much love you, with the same depth and the same romanticism that I have loved any man, but also deeper and differently than with men. So that has been just part of a very profound journey, I think, on this whole thing.
At the time we had matched, were you in a position where you had ever thought that you could be in a serious relationship with a couple?
Oh, absolutely not. No, in fact, in all my experiences, one of the most important things to me was making sure I was fully aware of all the boundaries, all the rules. I'm a rule follower. I was a compulsory monogamist to my core. I'm a very loyal person, and I absolutely did not ever want to see myself as intruding on someone's marriage or stepping on anyone's toes. And so, no, I never once gave any consideration that this would become anything more than a fun activity that we could enjoy each other's company with, and I could get away without the emotional toll. And that's what took me by surprise, because emotions quickly became apparent. And I shoved them down for a long time, trying to make sure that I wasn't getting my hopes up on something that wasn't a possibility. It wasn't going to be feasible. They're already married. I'm looking for a primary. 1,000,001 reasons why I shouldn't get emotionally attached to two people that are already committed to each other. And so I fought that tooth and nail, and it wasn't until you guys actually kind of brought it out of me. I think the first time I really recognized that it was a problem was that week before my birthday. I'd gone on a date with somebody, and the whole time I was just not feeling it anymore at all. And all I wanted to do was call them. And I think I did text you guys on the way back, like asking if they were still up because I wanted to talk to them so bad. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, crap. They're all I want to see. They're the only people I want to go out with and hang out with and talk to. And they're who I want to tell about my day, you know? And then it was the following weekend. It was my birthday weekend and y'all's anniversary weekend that really y'all, like we had a very emotional, intimate session. We'll call it a session of intimacy, where I was literally brought to tears, I think, because I was truly fighting back all the emotions. And Will started to put them to words for all of us, and then Paige echoed it, and I finally admitted it, and we said I love you for the first time. And it was just this amazing weight off of my shoulders, at least, because we still didn't really know where this was going or what we were going to do with it. Like, what did it mean? But we were at least willing to admit, like, hey, yeah, we all have feelings. We have all fallen. And that in itself was so beautiful, how we fell in love with each other at the same time, all three of us, from each perspective. It just, the probability of that happening is so small. I couldn't fathom it. We kept second guessing it. Trust me, we're like, we know this isn't the easy route to go. And yet it felt easy for us. It felt natural for us. And we knew we couldn't fight it anymore because we were going to be miserable if we did. I knew that continuing to date other men when I had these unbelievable feelings for both of them, it was just not going to get me very far. So yeah, kudos to you for bringing it out.
Oh, it was not on our bingo card whatsoever, right? Especially since, like, we hadn't experienced anything even remotely close to that with any of the other, like, women, right? Like, they, like I said, they were all very nice, and, like, we obviously felt comfortable enough with them to be friends and bring them into our bedroom. So, I mean, there was a quality, but, like, yeah, it was just so different with you. It was different at the same time, in the sense of, it felt like when Paige and I first met. And I think there's one night when we kind of both had realized it, and you had messaged us about something. I could probably look back in the messages and find it, but it was about something to do with going on a date or another guy or something. And we both read it and then looked at each other and were just so jealous.
So again, yeah, that like appropriate feeling of jealousy when it's okay to have those feelings. It worked out for the best of us because Will and I were both feeling jealous in the same way and communicated that to each other. And that was definitely the moment we realized, like, okay, we are acknowledging the fact that we have both developed feelings for you, Cam. And that was helpful because, of course, it's still, for the most part, a pretty taboo thing for a lot of folks. And so it's pretty important for the people who, if they are in a traditional setup already, to definitely have that communication, because that was so impactful. And for the most part, I feel like we had pretty similar feelings at the same stages. And I think a lot of it too was seeing how much each of us cared and how much we could tell you cared for us individually. We could see that. I could see how you cared for Will in different ways. And I could tell, instead of making me jealous for that, it made me happy that true compersion of seeing both of you make each other happier and light each other up brought me more joy. And that was an unusual feeling. And Will, I'm sure the same for you, that seeing Cam and I interact, it brought more fulfillment and happiness and joy than we could have ever experienced. And I think that was a big signifier that this is right and this is something that we want to fight for.
The way that you two just stared at each other from the very first date, the way that these two just lock eyes, and it mesmerizes me, and it makes me feel safe and secure in the idea that I will never leave either one of you alone, truly. And I think that stems from so Paige had a lot of health issues in 2023. And to the point where at one point, weren't sure if she was going to make it. And I think that those experiences with your health and the struggle of your health also allowed us to be more open to life and opportunity and love in a different way that we had never thought about because of all of it.
We get stripped raw from that experience, and it became something else of what do we prioritize in life? What matters most? And we came back with like human connection mattered most. Pursuing what we wanted mattered most. Food matters so much. But prioritizing each other's happiness, and how does the happiness take form? Where we find that happiness. And then learning there's someone else we want to bring in to prioritize that. Just the sheer ability of having that thought process of, yes, we would want this person to be around all the time and be around this person all the time and prioritize this person was enough to indicate to us that this is serious. And although we got to respect boundaries and of course see if this person also wants to be included in that priority, it kind of gave that spark and motivation for us to pursue.
Yeah, I would agree, because I'm to be 100% honest. No offense to any of the women that possibly we've had relationships in the past with that are listening to this, but they all made me feel very, very grateful for Paige, and in the sense of that I cannot live with very many people. I cannot deal with being around very many people 24 hours a day. It's a lot. I'm a lot. I understand that. It's not always them. It's also a lot of me. And to want to be around you, Cam, as much as we can possibly be, and doing whatever we can to facilitate that time that we get to spend with you, was one of the biggest green flags for us.
Oh, yeah.
Of being like, yeah, that's it.
Even when we do drive each other crazy sometimes.
Sometimes.
It happens. I know that it happens. I'm not easy either. I know this. But no, I think too on my end, coming to the realization that I had been in a long-standing marriage myself that had its share of problems that I wasn't really in tune with until after it was over. That's a whole other story. But then after a couple of years of dating, and I had one kind of reasonable relationship there in between, but beyond that, I had dated all sorts of people, all sorts of men from all over, not only the U.S., but abroad. And I had some wonderful experiences. I think I really enjoyed my dating experience on a whole. It hadn't yet led me to the one or anyone that I saw as the one. So I did. I had to let go a little bit when I realized that I do in fact have feelings for both of these people at the same time, and they were very intense, deep feelings, and it was a love that I felt safer in than any other love I had experienced before, which, given my background, was incredibly important to me, to just be able to feel safe again and to be able to trust and to be able to be myself, and feel like I was loved for who I am. And that was never in question with y'all, ever. You guys instilled this feeling of peace in me that I had not known in quite a long time. And I think that even scared me probably even more, just trying to figure out what it was and how it was possible. How could it really be this natural feeling, you know? So then I had to really struggle with my thoughts on what I had thought I was looking for in this traditional sense of a primary partner, or that just traditional, you know, you meet your soulmate and you're with them forever. And that seemed so much more far-fetched than what we had, because I felt like I had that in my marriage originally, and it was not the case. But I never felt as safe and as genuinely loved and appreciated and as seen, truly seen. The way that these two love, guys, it's enough to give anybody pause and want to fall in love with them. They make it very easy, and you never have to work to feel loved. You never have to ask to feel loved. You never have to ask to be seen, or understood or heard. They always want to hear me. They intuitively understand me. And even when they don't, they seek to understand and they listen. And that kind of love, oh, goodness, it was so refreshing coming from the dating scene, where, you know, it's a constant emotional mind game where everyone's afraid to put any sort of cards on the table because everyone's very jaded and people play things very close to the vest. And, you know, everyone's hurt and everyone's been burned, and the dating scene is rough. It is challenging. And you have to go into it with such a different mentality in order to even enjoy it, let alone find someone genuinely. And so to be able to find you two when I wasn't looking here for what we found, right? I was looking everywhere else for what I thought I wanted to find. And then it just found me with them. And it really reconfirmed that we were doing the right thing, that we were going in on this and not hiding from what we felt, and acknowledging that this was maybe not conventional and maybe wouldn't be the easiest way to have a significant relationship. But it was the only way that we could fathom at that point, because we couldn't live without each other.
Oh, I mean, it was by far the hardest decision, because this is not easy. It's so taboo to normal, quote unquote, normal people or normal society, that, yeah, it's, while we've been very lucky that we've only encountered positivity and support in those that we love, in those that are in our circles, it is definitely one of those things that, yeah, we get some judgment sometimes. And I mean, honestly, that's some of our favorite times, right? Is
Yeah.
like seeing the reactions and the judgments. Usually because people don't believe it. And I don't know if that's because how we look or what their perception of polyamory or multiple partners are, but it's hard to fight against that social construct.
Yeah, I think most people that live in a very traditional mindset, a very conventional relationship mindset, I think when they see people like us out, or when they think of non-traditional relationships or open marriages, their first thought kind of goes to swingers, which no shade on swingers, but it's very different, right? Like there are different shades of this non-traditional lifestyle, this polyamorous approach to love and relationships. And it goes far beyond just a sexual encounter. And so I think that's what originally got us interested in telling our story here on this podcast is, you know, making sure that people could see us as just like any other relationship, right? We fight, we love deeply, we share, life responsibilities. You guys are involved with my son, our son, and we are becoming a family.
Buying a house.
Buying a house. Oh my God, that'll be a whole other episode. Yeah, buying a house as a throuple. Very interesting. As traveling and, just even telling our friends and family. That's a whole other thing we will absolutely dive into more. But that was one of the first things that we did early on. I know for me in a couple of years of dating, I never once wanted to bring somebody that I had dated around any of my friends. I never once wanted to introduce them to my family, let alone nobody was getting introduced to my son until I knew that it was serious. And, really only one other person since my divorce had met my son. And so when we first started hanging out more and more, first of all, I knew it was serious because I was making way more time for them than I had made for anybody else in 2 years of dating. Usually dates would be several weeks removed, as soon as I didn't have an adult weekend or something like that, or did have an adult weekend. But y'all, we were finding ways to see each other all the time. And I think that it helped us really gain ground. But so early on, I immediately wanted to introduce you to my friends and bring you around my friend group, because not only did I think or know that they would accept you guys and us as a dynamic, but I wanted to share y'all and the glory of what I see in you guys with some of the people that meant the most to me. And it's the same reason why I felt like I had to tell my mom pretty early on. I wanted to tell everybody. I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And that was like a really hard thing, because at the time we were still kind of navigating, what is this? How do we make this work? Where does this actually take us?
Podcast. We better use fake names.
Yeah, we
can't
thought
show
about
our
that.
faces. Yeah.
Yeah, and professionally, what does it mean? And just there's lots of ramifications of taking a non-traditional approach to our entire lives and our relationships, and we're not the only people that are impacted by that. So we are consistently thinking of those situations. And ultimately, we find that our love makes each one of us better people, and that we are undeniably better together. And I think that shows through very well with our friends, our family, it's good for everyone that loves us to see us this happy and this fulfilled and this supported and this loved. It's got a positive ripple effect. And if this podcast can do anything, we just want to help others understand. If you see something outside of the norm and you don't think it should be possible or you don't think it's right, maybe getting a little insight into our story can show you that we're just 3 people that fell in love. Like, it's as simple as that. We weren't seeking it out. It just found us and we couldn't really deny it. So,
I'm going to be honest. I didn't get it. I didn't get polyamory. I didn't understand how it could work. My sister was in a polyamory. There's just so many things that I was like, I questioned and I just did not understand it. And I'm usually very empathetic and I can learn from others' mistakes and experiences, but for this one, it just had to smack me over the head really, really hard and in the best possible way for me to understand that love isn't quantifiable, that it isn't this finite resource. And as soon as we were open to it, it found us again, and we're very lucky, and we can't wait to share that journey.
Well, yeah. And to bring it back to how do we become a throuple? How did this start? How has it been successful? We just happened to have priorities that aligned, and things that we didn't even know that we were looking for. Partly that we had already fulfilled and just kind of expanded what it is we were looking for. But the sense of like companionship, teamwork. In the end, that's what this all comes down to. We had a 2-person team. Now we've just added a team member. A lot of the feedback and not concerns, but just questions people had pretty early on. Even Cam, yourself, that you had raised was you didn't want to come between our marriage. And after understanding the emotions and the feelings and being willing to jump on those emotions and feelings, it very much became, no, but we want you to come between the marriage because you are now part of it. You're a part of the team. You're part of the unit. And we were all actively seeking that one way or another. We just got lucky in that we happened to find that kind of early on with each other and then found another person that fits into that dynamic as well. But in the end, we were still looking for that companionship, that teamwork, that just feeling of having a person who can be there, who does understand who you are and who you can be yourself around. And we just got lucky in the dynamic that it is. But that's just, again, a big key in all of it is understanding what you're looking for and what you want. And we just didn't say no to what we wanted.
In this economy.
Brave, honestly. Yeah, in this economy, it takes 3.
It really does.
But no, I think I met y'all right about the time that I was finally admitting to myself that I was polyamorous. I think it had taken me a long time to come to terms with that to a degree, at least.
Did you know? I didn't know. I had no clue I was polyamorous. Did you know you were polyamorous?
No, but I guess we took the more like monogamous approach to polyamory that you possibly could. So
yeah, this is true.
Which
this
again,
is true because we are a closed throuple or triad. We played with that terminology for a long time, deciding. I think throuple is what we landed on.
But looking for that definition, trying to figure out what that was an interesting challenge to navigate in itself. Again, why we want to do this, to explore non-traditional relationships and share those experiences with other people, is because none of us even really thought that could be an option, that you could have an exclusive polycool.
Yeah.
and that it would actually work successfully and everyone involved would have equitable feelings for each other. It's not something I thought that would fall into the realm of polyamory, but it can. And that's the coolest thing about this, is we're proving that things that people thought weren't possible are absolutely possible.
Yeah. And you can absolutely love more than one person at once. Say this all the time, but we all have different friends and different friend groups that add different things to our lives. We have pets that we love differently. We have multiple children that we love differently but equal, or maybe not so equal sometimes. I don't know. I've only got one, so I get to give him all of it. But, loving more than one person doesn't mean you love the other person less. It just means that each of those people that you love contributes to your life in meaningful ways that adds to your overall fulfillment. And I love them so deeply as individuals, and I also fell in love with them as a couple, and then I also fell in love with the three of us as a throuple. But we talk about how our love is different, and we experience our love differently as well. And all of that adds to our overall general fulfillment. And it's something that you unfortunately don't always get in those traditional monogamous formats, unless you're lucky enough to have a very exceptional partner who is willing to communicate at all times and who is willing to evolve and grow with you as you grow and evolve. Because not everybody's willing to do that. And not everyone has partners that are willing to do the work to keep it going. And that's been one of the biggest differences that I've seen with y'all versus anybody that I dated. And I dated some wonderful people. There's no knock on them necessarily. It's just not everyone's willing to do the work, plain and simple.
Even for themselves.
Yeah,
That's the
especially for
thing.
themselves.
Yeah, I mean, what we've learned from this too is knowing ourselves, knowing what we want, what we need individually is so important before we bring anything to the table for each other. And this has been a great experience to challenge that, to learn more about ourselves and to be more accepting of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Well, I believe that kind of covers all of it.
Yeah, that's definitely the start of our journey. There's so much more to cover, and we plan to.
No, one and done. That's our first and last episode here on Fourth Wheel Podcast. Thank you. It is a complicated journey, and we're along for the ride. So should we do some sort of outro? Well, I don't know. Should we do like do Fourth Wheel Podcast?
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So that's a little sneak peek into our journey. If you like today's episode, make sure to subscribe and follow us for more conversations about life, love, and the complexity of relationship. And don't forget to send us your questions. Maybe we'll answer them on the next one.
Absolutely. And we're just getting started. So stay tuned for our next episode where we will dive in a little bit to the nitty gritty of what it was like telling our friends and family about our relationship dynamic. And spoiler alert, it wasn't always smooth sailing.
Thanks again for being our fourth wheel today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in.